So this guy is a doctor. Right now, he's serving 2 life sentences because he tried to have 2 people killed. His name is Leon Jacob, except nobody actually died. It started with Jacob at a table. A doctor, calmly explaining how he'd kill his ex-girlfriend. Inject potassium chloride. Stop the heart. Untraceable. And he wasn't working alone. His new girlfriend wanted her ex-husband dead too, so the 2 of them went hitman shopping. Together. The man they hired to do it? An undercover cop. And every word, every plan, every payment was caught on tape. But before any of this ever reached a courtroom, one of the 2 people who planned it would be dead. Leon Jacob didn't just snap one day. Long before the hitman, there was a pattern, and a trail of people who'd learned to be afraid of him. On paper, the man you'd want your daughter to bring home. Smart, charming, a trained physician. So why did every hospital that trusted him come to regret it? Fired from one residency, pushed out of another. One review flat out called him a threat to patient safety. And when someone crossed him, he didn't let it go. An administrator testified against him. So Jacob broke into the man's home. That's not a rumor. He pleaded guilty to it. There was a marriage that ended in stalking charges, threatening calls, texts that didn't stop. The resume of red flags was getting long, and nobody was reading it out loud. In 2014, up in Pittsburgh, Jacob met a woman named Megan Veracus. Smart, warm, ambitious. For a while, it looked like love. Then the mask slipped. By January of 2017, Megan had seen who he really was. There was a fight. He put his hands on her face and split her lip. She did everything right. She left. She filed charges. She got a protective order, 2 full years. On paper, she was safe. But a piece of paper only works on someone who's afraid of it. Leon Jacob was not that man. Because by the time Megan walked away, Jacob had already moved on, into the home and the life of a woman named Valerie McDaniel. Valerie was a well-known Houston veterinarian, successful, respected, a woman who spent her days saving animals people loved. But Valerie was in a war of her own, a bitter divorce. 17 years of marriage over, and a custody fight over their little girl, Natalie, that was tearing her apart. She was terrified of losing her daughter. And into that fear walked a man who solved problems in the darkest way imaginable. So these 2 damaged people found their common ground. His ex. Her ex. Both had to go, and they'd help each other do it. 2 targets, 1 plan. All they were missing was someone willing to pull the trigger. Jacob started asking around, and that is a very dangerous game because you never really know who you're talking to. His first stop? A Houston bail bondsman named Michael Kubosh. Jacob told him he wanted Megan out of the picture. Kubosh later described that conversation in one line that stuck with the jury. He said, quote, "I felt like I was talking to the devil himself. When the bail bondsman thinks you're the scary one, you've got a problem." Jacob had already paid another man to help, a military veteran named Moataz Azeh. Everyone called him Zach. Around $10,000 in cash and jewelry to make Megan disappear. But the bail bondsman, Kubosh, went to the police. And when detectives tracked down Zach, the man Jacob had already paid, they turned him. He became their informant. The trap was closing, and Jacob had no idea. The police set it up perfectly. Zach introduced Jacob to the hitman he'd been looking for, a man calm, professional, exactly what you'd expect. His name was Javier Duran. He was an undercover Houston police officer. And everything Jacob said from that moment on was being recorded. Every word. Which is how we know exactly what a doctor sounds like when he's ordering a murder. He didn't hesitate. He didn't hedge. This is a doctor, a man trained to heal, laying out how to kill his ex-girlfriend and leave no trace behind. His idea? Potassium chloride. Inject it, he explained. Stop her heart. Untraceable. He'd learned it in medical school, and now he was spending it on this. And when Duran pushed, asked what if she wouldn't cooperate, Jacob didn't flinch. I prefer not to have to do that, he said, but my survival is more important. He talked about forcing her out of town, go back to Pittsburgh. He talked about threatening her parents. And through all of it, one line kept surfacing that would later hang him. He kept saying it. I prefer. I prefer she leaves. I prefer she's gone. Soft words for a hard thing. Remember that phrase. The jury sure did. And this was never just about Megan. Because Valerie, the veterinarian, the mother, she was right there in it too. Her target was Mac, her own ex-husband, Natalie's father. When the fake hitman floated how it would happen, a carjacking, staged to look random, Valerie leaned in. Calm, working out her ex-husband's death like she was picking a paint colors. And when she justified it, she reached for the one thing that made it feel okay in her own head. She was terrified he'd take their daughter. In her mind, she had no other choice. She told herself it was love, that love could justify anything. It can't, but that's a lesson for later, because now the two of them were headed to dinner, to make it real. It all came to a head at, of all places, an Olive Garden. And look who's in that booth. A doctor, sworn to save lives. A vet who saved animals for a living. Two healers, planning two killings. For nearly 2 hours they sat there, working out the money, the methods, which ex dies how. Over dinner, I will never look at unlimited breadsticks the same way again. And they paid. Over the course of it all, more than $20,000. Cash and jewelry. 2 Cartier watches. Real money, changing hands, to end 2 real lives. They thought they'd found their killer. They thought they were finally getting what they wanted. They had no idea they'd just handed a police officer his entire case. Now the police had a choice. They had the plot. They had the money. But to make it airtight, they needed to see how Jacob and Valerie would react when they believed it was actually done. So they staged it. They built 2 fake crime scenes. For Mac, a photo of him slumped over a steering wheel, a fake wound, gone. For Megan, bound to a chair, wrists zip-tied, mouth taped. It was all fake. Megan and Mac were alive and safe the whole time, because they were in on it, posing for their own staged murders with the police. The only 2 who had no idea? Jacob and Valerie. Duran showed Jacob the photos, delivered the news. She's dead, he said. She's gone. And here's how a doctor reacts to being told he just got his ex-girlfriend murdered. He said, I don't want to know anything. No horror, no collapse, just a man, tidying up. That was everything the police needed. Around 2 in the morning, the knock came. Officers filled the apartment, and a sergeant read them both their rights, for solicitation of capital murder. And Leon Jacob, the mastermind, the doctor, the man with a plan for everything, had exactly one reaction. He looked at them and said, Me? Then, as they walked him out into the cold night, his big concern? I need my sweatshirt. I'm already cold. 2 people nearly dead, and he wanted a sweater. Both of them were charged. Both faced the same wall of evidence, their own voices, on tape. But Valerie McDaniel would never see a courtroom, because 2 weeks after the arrest, the weight of it came down on her. 2 days before she died, she recorded a message to the people she loved. Just one line really mattered. I never wanted to hurt anyone. On March 27, 2017, Valerie McDaniel took her own life. She was gone. And Leon Jacob would face the jury alone. And his response to the death of the woman who'd shared his bed and his plan? Cold as ever. That, he said, was a decision she made on her own. Now here's the question the whole trial turned on. Nobody actually died. Megan was fine. Mac was fine. So how do you send a man to prison for life, for a murder that never happened? The answer is a charge called solicitation of capital murder. And the law here is simple, and it is brutal. The crime is the asking. You don't have to pull a trigger. You don't need a body. If you seriously try to hire someone to kill, and you mean it, the law treats that like the killing itself. And Leon Jacob had done more than ask. He'd planned. He'd paid. He'd picked the method. On tape. The hardest client to defend is the one who recorded himself. The trial opened in March of 2018, almost exactly 1 year after Valerie took her own life. And the prosecution had the simplest job in the building. They didn't have to describe Leon Jacob. They just pressed play and let the jury listen to a doctor, in his own calm voice, planning the death of the woman who left him. You could watch it land on their faces. Then Megan Verikis took the stand, the woman he'd planned to kill, sitting feet away from the man who'd priced her death. And she looked right at him. She testified about the fear, about learning, after the fact, just how close it came. What it does to you, to hear a recording of someone planning your last day. And Mac McDaniel testified too, Valerie's ex-husband, Natalie's dad. He put the stakes in one sentence no parent can hear without flinching. He said, if they would have been successful, Natalie wouldn't have had any parents. One dead by their plan, one in prison, and a little girl with no one. The defense tried. Jacob took the stand himself. He claimed he'd only ever hired a private investigator to win Megan back, not to hurt her. I never asked anybody to kill anybody, he told them. The problem? The jury had spent days listening to him do exactly that, on tape. And his ex-wife took the stand and described the same man Megan knew, the same pattern. The jury wasn't looking at one bad night. They were looking at who he'd always been. When it went to the jury, they didn't need long. Guilt, decided in a little over an hour. 2 counts of solicitation of capital murder. Guilty, guilty. One juror later explained what turned them. It was that soft little phrase, I prefer. She said, when you prefer and you do nothing to stop it, you don't care if that person dies. Then came the sentence, and the same jury took about an hour to decide that too. Life in prison, on each count. For a doctor who never touched either of them. And before they took him away, Megan Verikis got to say the thing she'd waited a year to say, to his face. She told him she hoped he'd think of her from his cell. And then she said the line that ended it. It's because of me, you will be in prison for life. The woman he tried to erase put him away. Leon Jacob is in a Texas prison right now. 2 life sentences. He won't even be eligible for parole until 2047, when he's an old man, if ever. It came within a phone call of working. If Kubosh hadn't called the police, Megan and Mac are almost certainly dead. Natalie grows up with no parents at all. Megan Verikis did everything right. She left. She reported him. She got the order. And it still wasn't enough. It took a stranger's conscience to keep her alive. Because the most dangerous people don't always look dangerous. Sometimes they wear a white coat. Sometimes they say all the right words. And sometimes they prefer. If someone in your life keeps telling you who they are, believe them the first time. Be careful who you trust, and take care of yourself. Everything you saw here comes from public court records and news reporting. The images are illustrations, not real footage, and all of it is true.